A very good morning and a warm welcome to one and all present over here, teachers. Thank you so much for joining on another Super Sunday workshop. This time we are getting into 139th session and we're going to talk about judgments and being judgmental. An important topic which leads to something called as bias in the class. Something very important, especially in the school setup, because we do not know the opposite students or the parents or the teachers, in fact, even the principal for that matter. So we are in a position to always look at the person and come to conclusions based on the way they dress, the way they talk, even the way they look at us. It's an important topic to be dealt with and quite a complicated topic to understand from the perspectives of what's exactly a judgment, what exactly is being judgmental, and why labels, conclusions, stereotypes play an important role in a particular child's education. So this is going to be quite a topic of psychology, and I think all the teachers would have come across few psychologists out there during their BH studies or in their day-to-day life right now, and can relate to what they've spoken in the past. So thank you so much for joining. And before continuing, I would like to thank the people of Kolkata for receiving warmly. I would also like to apologize some of the teachers from Loreto Convent schools and Sri Shikshayatan school or any school for that matter. I came to visit the respective leaders for various reasons, but never got to meet you. Considering the timelines, I'm really sorry for that. However, whoever I happened to meet in the corridor, thanks for the warm gesture identifying me. And now why I say identifying me, because as I told, I look a little brighter on the screen considering good quality camera. So it's quite like people generally go, they'll see me and then they'll walk and then they'll come back. Are you the Super Sunday guy or something like that? So it's like I am that guy. Yeah, yeah. So I really feel very good about it. So thank you so much for all the warmth that I received from Kolkata. That's something that I would like to register right in the beginning, and looking forward to meet each and every person who's there in these sessions so regularly in the course of life. Thank you so much for encouraging me throughout, and thank you so much for consistently joining on all these sessions. I hope it adds some value to your life. And one of the feedbacks that I saw in few days or few Sundays was the Super Sunday workshops and the topics have been molding the character of me being a teacher. One of the teachers actually mentioned about it. Character, it goes a deep way. So thank you for that kind of a recognition. And we make sure that all these topics that we deal with are backed up with good research and mention right validation points for you to go back and research more about it. So every Sunday we've also started the policy of sharing the presentations. So if you're there till throughout, you'll be getting the presentation as well. I think probably at around 10:45 along with the reflection form. Without further delay, let's quickly get into the topic of today. That's judgment and judgmental. Nice topic, bro. Education perspectives. Let's understand this. So Super Sunday workshop, session 139. So the first thing, let's quickly understand some of the instances where we actually judge. And this is the first point I would like to mention about. The principal favors certain teachers. I'm not sure how many of you have come across this. The moment you come to the school, everybody has got this apprehension that this particular principal is showing bias. Something like, hey, they both are from the same native place. No, that's why. So like, hey, they both share the same caste. No, that's why. It's favoritism, partial behavior, so much of bias. I'm not sure how many of you have done that. If you've done that, I'm pretty sure you're actually talking about it right now. At least thinking about your principal for that matter. It happens. It definitely happens. Wrong or right is a secondary question, but it definitely happens, is the reality. Second is, she observed my class. She wants to catch my faults. I think this is another important area that most of it we would have come across, like principal or the coordinator or the HM. They suddenly come to the class. They're sitting in front of the class and judging you. Obviously, that's why they are there, right? But still, you are under the perception that they want to catch the fault in me, something like that. I've also seen this. The colleagues of in the staff room, they talk about it. Ma'am, next is your turn. कल तुम्हारे क्लास में भी आ जाएगी, or आएंगे. The it's not gender stereotypical, especially with the principals. He changed coordinators because he wants only his people. I'm not sure how many of you made this dialogues, but this is very, very common. And region judgmental, something like, she's having a big tilak, she must be a Bengali. Yeah, she's wearing a sari like this, she must be from Kerala. She's or Coorg for that matter. I've heard all these things. So this is with respect to the region specificity or language specificity. In fact, based on the accent, people very nicely judge. He's saying water to be water. Definitely he's from Tamil Nadu, something like that. And guess what? You're right. In predominantly in most cases, this student wears makeup. She must be distracted from studies. This is especially happens in ninth, 10th, 11th and 12th. जितना टाइम मेकअप लगाने में लगाया, हाँ, उतना टाइम अगर मैथ्स में प्रिपेयर किया होता शायद तुम्हारा मार्क्स अच्छा होता. It's like that. The time that you spent in your makeup, probably you could have spent in preparing for maths and you could have got good marks. I've heard this, spoken by some of my teachers alone to some of my fellow classmates. Well, that's being judgmental. We're talking about it in reality. This is the hosting school. That is why the prizes are presented to their own students. Have you come across this? There is this a school where they come across and you participate in that particular school, and most of the students get their own prize. If you have come across, then you can actually mention on that, then link that on the chat. Now, unfortunately, the students who really won the prize carry the burden of being judged. Now, how far it's true or not is a secondary story, but this happens. Next is this boy so quiet. He must be well mannered. Huh? This is another judgment that generally made. Like, I'm most of the time very quiet in the class, and people consider me to be a disciplined boy, a well mannered. I was quiet in the class because my father was my own class teacher, and I can't afford to have bad name, so I have to pretend. That doesn't mean I'm well mannered all the time. Well, this happens. Good or not is a secondary story. Next is look at her dressing. This must be her character. Now, if the dressing is really good, they're categorized as, wow. And if the dressing is really not good according to them, ah, this is her character. This is like character defamation. Character judgment is one of the greatest cause of moral, depressions among the students. We are predominantly getting into the students and many more. So when we talk about all these instances, all these judgments keep happening. Good or not is a secondary story, but these happens. Now all these judgments, when we look into a person, when it happens, it's not out of blue. It's because of our experiences, it's because of our learning in the past, it's because of our moral and ethical systems that we have been brought up in, so or raised in. So are they really wrong? Well, the answer is no, they're definitely not wrong. But are they really good? Oh, interestingly, they might not always be good as well. So what's exactly the difference is? That is where judgment and being judgmental comes into play. Judgment can always be neutral. It can be sometimes negative or towards the positive side, but predominantly it is neutral. Allowing judgments to happen in the class is a skill. It's important for a teacher to be able to judge the students. But coming to a conclusion based on the initial instant information and putting it on the negative side is actually being judgmental. Let's understand this in a detailed manner. Now, why this particular topic of judgment and being judgmental has got a very thin line of difference, and it's very important for all the teachers to know that being judgmental or coming to conclusions based on judgments leads to something called as cognitive bias that we will be touching upon in forward or future sessions. And let's understand what exactly is the difference. So when we talk about a balanced evaluation based on facts, context, and reasoning, that's called as judgment, which is very important for all the teachers. But if it takes the next step, a quick negative evaluation without considering facts or context is called as being judgmental. There are times when you get into the class and the class is really noisy, and you immediately come to a judgment like probably this class is very naughty if it's your first day. But what really happened, we didn't inspect in that. We quickly went on with the initial instances, initial information, leading us to some negative conclusion, and that's called as judgmental. Interestingly, as per psychology, judgmental is always attributed to a negative quality. This is also the reason, basically, there is a something called as heuristics. We'll talk about heuristics right after this. But the point is, with available information, whenever we decide something, most of the times, if it's on the negative side, it's basically being judgmental. Now, why most of the times? We'll understand that with further examples. Purpose is to understand, guide, or make fair decision in case of judgment. But being judgmental is always to label, criticize, or assume. Why? Because it's easy. It's easy to come to a conclusion so that you can go forward and go with the next work. That's the reason we get judgmental, which is fair in a certain manner. We'll understand that. Thinking process is basically something called a slow, reflective thinking by Kahneman. We'll be talking about him a little later. Using system 2, analytical thinking, which is all about prefrontal cortex. Using the prefrontal cortex to relax, wait, not listen to amygdala, which is all about fight and flight. Let's wait, reason. That's called a system 2 thinking. System 1 thinking is impulsive. We'll talk about Kahneman a little later. Then we'll get to understand what exactly analytical thinking means. Second is fast and automatic thinking, which is more like snap assumptions, predominantly happens during the marriage. Emotions involved is neutral or empathetic in case of judgment, but when we talk about being judgmental, it's generally harsh. It's generally, cruel. In fact, even now this happens. It's biased. Outcome helps improve behavior, supports growth, builds trust, which is what we require in a particular class. But in this particular case of being judgmental, it hurts relationship, lowers moral, creates fear and guilt. If at all your child is not carrying the confidence that he carried in the last year, last academic year, I'm everybody can be sure that the child has been a victim of being judged either at their family or in the school or by the fellow friends. It could be anything, but judgments have definitely happened over there in a negative aspect. So sometimes the principals or the teachers say, right, hey, you were really good in the last academic year. What happened this year? Is anything bothering you? Those questions come because some incidents happened that can even lead to trauma. We'll talk about that as well today. So flexibility is basically focuses to on the behavior, that is what's really happening at that particular moment. But here focus is on the person, more of a character. So when you talk about judging, it's more on the current behavior, the way you behave, the reasoning behind the behavior and everything. But when you talk about judgmental, it is more of a label on the character. Good girl, bad boy, you know, safe decision, unsafe decision. Only two attributes, and you don't really consider all the scenarios. That's called as being judgmental. Many times it has been a case that a teacher would really try very hard, someone who's 25, 30 years experience, to relate with the children with the modern trends and techniques. They'll go prepare in detail, they'll understand the news, they'll go through the Google, they'll try to learn what exactly chat gpt is. When they come to the class, there'll be a small hiccup because of which their whole confidence gets shattered. Not just because of the hiccup, but because the students at the back will start murmuring, saying that ma'am doesn't know, she's just trying, she's not efficient, something like that. And that kind of hurts the teachers, and when they hear it from their colleagues, it even hurts more, and that lowers the confidence. So somewhere nobody understands the effort. So that's the reason the principals, generally the leaders in the leadership workshop, they talk about the incentivization of the process and not the product. What really is important for a principal is to look at the teacher's efforts in learning to do whatever she does in the class, and not the on the day performance. On the day performance can be really good by a very low experienced teachers and really bad by a high experienced teachers. But sometimes it can happen due to certain topics. But what really matters is putting them on the same stage. That's where competency comes into picture. Let's not get into that part today. Well, the flexibility is open to new information, willing to reconsider, but stuck to initial impressions, not open to changing the view. More of narrow mindedness. Impact in teaching encourages students, colleagues with constructive feedback. Art of feedback comes into picture. Discourages students, colleagues, creates a toxic atmosphere. How many of you can put it on the chat, how many of you have been told by your teachers or sometimes your parents saying that you will never reach the heights in your life? You will lead nowhere in life. You are doomed for life. If you have been, you can say yes on the chat if you want. That itself shows a lot of confidence that you have in your life right now. So many of us would have been subjected to abuses, which is basically because of somebody else's wrong judgments on us. So that's the impact of teaching and impact of teachers. Finally, scientific bias, which we were talking about. Uh, Predominantly, judgment is all about prefrontal cortex. It is with reasons, not really listening to amygdala all the time. But the other way, being judgmental is all about driven by amygdala and cognitive biases, sometimes like because of fear, stereotypes, and shortcuts. So this is the ultimate reason of what's exactly judgment and being judgmental is from different point of view. Now that we have established this, let us actually understand its effects. why does it happen, the science behind it in a little more detail, and that'll lead us to understand subconsciously how many times we've been judgmental. Let's go forward. Judgment, healthy observation, big judgmental, negative evaluation. Look at this. He arrived late today. Maybe he got stuck in traffic. This is judgment. He's always late. He's so irresponsible. I hope you're getting the point. Her presentation had some mistakes. Her presentation was terrible. She has no talent. Are you able to understand that the judgments are always at that particular moment for that instant? But here it takes a timeline. It talks about the character. Say, for example, the child is restless today. That's an observation. But the child is always a troublemaker. It's a hit on the character. Wrong, no? It shouldn't have happened, right? Next is he didn't submit the report on time, but he's lazy and doesn't take work seriously. That's again wrong. You're directly hitting the character. She spoke loudly in the staff room. She's so rude and has no manners. This has happened even in the principal room. Principals are like, always she's so loud. Why does she has to be so loud? Arey, what's wrong in being loud? That's okay. Allow her to talk. Yeah, that's how she's brought up. But doesn't mean she's rude. This has happened many times to many teachers. We get habituated to talk loudly in the class so much. Our voice kind of, is not conscious about the decibels even in the principal's room. There also we continue talking sometimes unconsciously, subconsciously, probably not even unconsciously. And sometimes that's mistaken. Wrong. Wrong. So basically, she spoke loudly in the staff room. She's so rude and has no manners is a wrong statement. The student didn't understand the concept. That's a good thing. The student is slow and not smart. Now, coming to slow and not smart can take time. Continuous results, regular observations, and observations can be about that particular moment or what happened in the home or last week or a year back or what happened in the childhood. But that is called as judgment. But immediately labeling the child that is not smart or is very slow, and see, it's a good thing like if you're coming to a conclusion like that, but not letting the children know about it in that negative aspect is somewhere it's absolutely fine. Yeah, we'll talk about that as well. He interrupted me in the meeting. He always wants attention. He's so self-centered. That's again hitting the character. She was upset and did not participate today. She's always moody and difficult to deal with. The principal corrected my lesson plan. That's a beautiful thing, right? The principal thinks she knows everything. She's so bossy. Yeah, this is also very common. He made a mistake while teaching fractions. Actually, such kind of statements are very common among the colleagues in the staff room. One maths teacher coming and explaining another maths teacher, saying that, ma'am, probably fractions, if you give this example, it'll be better. And she's like, I'll do that. And then at the back, she'll be like, she knows everything. I don't know everything. Something like that. I mean, you get judged. You're all thinking about somebody like that in your school, right? If yes, then just smile on the chat. He made a mistake while teaching fractions. He's a poor teacher. He can't even teach basics. She shared a different opinion in the meeting. She always argues, such an irritating person. This is judgment and judgmental. Now, there is always a threshold. When a repeated judgment leading to a negative attribute always yields the same result, that is absolutely leads you to judgmental, being judgmental. Maybe it is true, maybe it is true. But the mission is to avoid that. The mission is to avoid that. Even if 10 times the teacher repeats the same mistake, it's important for the leader to understand the scenario every time. Just because those 10 times happened, the 11th time, if the same repeats, and if the principal concludes she's always like that, then the impression that the principal will have on the teacher is kind of labeled. And once it's labeled, it's for life. It's very difficult to take it out. So somewhere it's important, even in the 11th time, to have the patience for the colleagues and the leaders on the students or everybody else around in the environment to relax and judge based on the observations again and again. It's a very difficult thing. How is it possible? It's a very difficult thing. That is the reason people talk about heuristics. So for that, the psychology behind judgments is something that we need to understand. Now for that, let me quickly stop sharing the screen and quickly put it across. Have you ever come across the scenarios where you don't like to share something with your parents or immediate friends, but you're comfortable talking about it to a stranger? Have you come across that scenario? Say yes or no. It could be a problem, or it could be a happy thing, or it could be something about yourself that you achieved in your life, and you're like, I want to share this to someone. Predominantly, you seek appreciation from your parents, or you want to talk about it to your parents, or the teachers or the friends, but you don't prefer to do that. We generally try to talk to another stranger altogether, somebody who does not really know us. And there you want to talk about it and then seek the recognition. That's why it always happens, right? When somebody very close to us gives us advice, you don't really care. But if the same statement is made by a YouTuber or a news channel or some actor or actress on the screen, we tend to take it up. Well, the interesting fact is we are not really happy about the judgments made by the people around us on us. I hope you're able to understand. You want to break that, and in order to break that, it takes a lot of efforts. So you don't really care. You start avoiding them. Now, if at all you're there in that particular scenario, that means that particular surrounding has been heavily judgmental on you. It is important for you to tell them stop being judgmental or try to have your another version altogether. Eventually, you'll find that you'll start liking to share information with them as well. So it's something related to labels, something related to a package of characteristics of a particular person that another person has on another person, and you don't like it. You don't like it. For example, in my case, if I have to talk about my friends treat me in a certain manner. I kind of like it during my colleges, even now for that matter. But when I come up with a session or when I showed them my computer science curriculum with a sudden, they were stunned. They were like, "Do you really write books? You've done this?" I kind of like it, to be very honest. I kind of like that surprise element. But if it is there in a negative aspect, it kind of hurts us. Now, why are we even talking about it? Keep the scenario in your mind, and now let us get into the psychology of judgments, and this will give a very clear picture. Now, basically, the psychology behind this: humans are wired to judge. It's a survival mechanism, so it's not wrong. It happens, and it's absolutely fine to have the judgments. The brain uses shortcuts, which is called as heuristics, that help us decide quickly. So with available information at that particular point, you come to a conclusion. That's called as heuristics. In schools, quick judgments are useful for discipline, safety, and instruction. Sometimes you would have seen that the students are so nodding the class. There might be two students fighting with each other, and the principal or the teacher comes straight into the class and shouts, and students jump to conclusions saying that, "Ma'am, this person bet the other person, that person started making noises, this person started throwing the dusters or the chalk." You don't care. You're like, "Just shut up. I don't want to listen to any of this. I want everybody to be quiet right now." We do that, right? That's called as basically judgments. And saying you are a naughty class at that particular moment is being judgmental without listening to anything is absolutely fine for that particular moment, and it's called as heuristics. But when shortcuts become assumptions on the character, the conclusions become judgmental. The same teacher who's there in the class without even understanding the scenario, she's immediately targeting one particular boy, saying that you've always been like that. But unfortunately, on that particular day, that boy didn't really, commit any mistake. That means that boy is going to go to a zone of, you know, depression. And it's called as moral depression, a label that's created on that particular child. Affects the confidence to a very large extent. And then later you realize you were wrong. And it's important for you to come back and apologize. And if you don't do that, then permanently you're somewhere creating a huge distance between you and the child. So it's important to understand something called as heuristics, which leads to something called as being judgmental. So you can't avoid it even if you try. But the next part is when you talk about what really means being judgmental. See, jumping to conclusion without facts, labeling the child lazy, slow, careless, attacking the person instead of addressing behavior. So nicely they've written, feeling morally superior. I'm always right. My policies are right, my systems are right, they have to follow me. I want to impact everyone with my policies and my way of life. This is how life coach should be, etc., etc., etc. Morally superior, refusing to change opinion even when new information is shown. How much ever you try, you can't convince your husband that you're brilliant than him. I'll repeat it. How much ever you try, you can't convince your husband that you're brilliant than him. And somewhere he also knows that. That's why he doesn't want to accept it. I'm just, stereotyping it, considering many people are women over here. That's called as refusing to change opinion even when new information is shown. That's being judgmental. Impact on students: damages self-esteem, increases misbehavior, breaks trust, creates learned helplessness, and reduces engagement. These are the effects of it. That is the reason people say that do not get judgmental. So what exactly we are supposed to do? Let's understand that. So judgment is basically evaluate behavior. Judgmental is attack character. And attacking character is a sin. Is a sin. Even if you attack character and say that you're a good fella, that's a good thing. Yeah, still positive. But attacking the character, saying that you're wrong, that kind of has a long lasting effect. Once we are aware as teachers about all these attributes, it's clear for us to tell the students about the same and kind of create a mask when somebody comes and attacks us. So it's like being ignorant to the surrounding information, rumors, not really getting carried away with the negative attributes of the colleagues. They keep going and complaining about you to the principal, and you're like, that's okay, no problem, I'll manage it. Something like that. You can do that only when you are aware about the scenarios. Effects of teachers being judgmental, what exactly happens? The students lower self-esteem, reduced motivation, obviously. In fact, nothing will change, attitude will come. And this is going to go till the society, and people will start giving gyan. These days, the 10th, 11th, and 12th standard students, I was, getting to hear them speak. They're like, society is like this, you have to be like that. I'm like, society, you have not even come out of your colony and you're talking about society. I'm like that. But the point is, they are making judgments based on the society that they live in, which is an environment. And if that had a negative effect on them, they'll think the whole world is like that. And obviously, their actions in future are going to be a retaliation of the attributes that happened in the past. So it's important for the students to undergo new experiences. And that's the reason change of environment is important. And as per American psychologists, many people consider students going to hostel as a good idea. So for high school, it's completely different environment. The students literally come out of the homes and live separately. And that's why in India, hostels have been working a lot. Sometimes it gets into a good attribute, predominantly. I would say sometimes, very rarely it gets into the negative aspect as well. So, what do you call that? Being a facilitator, being a guide throughout the life is very important. Fear of participation. Students avoid asking questions or speaking in class. They try to escape. Increased anxiety and stress. Constant judgment creates pressure, leading to emotional distress. Damage to just that's it. Once if a teacher starts judging, there are some very hurting statements like teachers will be like, "Hey, I thought you were a good boy. You're such a bad boy."
Moment, please, teachers.
I'm so sorry. Some technical glitch, and I was thrown out of the meeting. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. Yeah, neither I'm not gone. You're right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, let's it's chaos, right? I'm so sorry. Hardly happened in a Super Sunday workshop. Okay. It's one way of checking if the teachers are there. Heavily you are there, I can see that. So let's get back to the topic. We're just getting into the teacher student relationship, and it just faded away between you and me right now. So anyways, damaged student teacher student relationship. Students feel misunderstood, disconnected from the teacher. uh the presentation will be appearing in few seconds. I hope you're able to see the screen. Yes, now you are. There is something called as fixed mindset development. Students start thinking abilities are fixed, like I am weak, not improvable. Okay. Okay. And next is poor academic performance. Emotional blocks reduce concentration, memory, and learning engagement. Behavioral issues, feeling judged, leads to resistance, withdrawal, or acting out. Finally, social labeling. Other students adopt the teacher's judgments, leading to stigma and isolation. Now, social labeling also happens among the students. If a child is continuously getting punished by the teacher, the whole class is against that particular child. That kind of impacts
Sir,
forever behavior of the
able
child.
to see the presentation, sir.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, will be that screen not shown. Yeah, you'll be able to see that in few seconds. Three, two, and one. Okay, you should be able to see that. Mukesh, please confirm, please.
Sir, yes, sir.
So students may carry these labels into adulthood, affecting career confidence and risk taking. So these are effects of teachers being judgmental. So what exactly a teacher should do? Let's come to conclusion. Now, in order to not to be judgmental, what should we really do? So basically, we judge because of emotional exhaustion sometimes. We have this cognitive bias based on, you know, our experiences in the past. Halo effect is all about assuming that the child is like that because of so and so attribute. Oh, he's a son of a teacher. He will be always disciplined. He's a well dressed person, so he must be a well mannered person as well. All these things. Confirmation bias, basically. We're going to talk about cognitive biases in the next Super Sunday workshop. Staff room influence. Sometimes what really happens is teachers will say, "Hey, this class you're going, it's a very naughty class. Beware of that particular guy called as Rohan or Rohit, whatever it is. Somehow the name starts always with R. Think about it. Past experiences, pressure of deadlines, syllabus, then admin work, lack of time to understand the root cause. Obviously, you can't be getting into the history of everything and each and every. So that leads you to being judgmental, which is actually not wrong, but it is actually wrong. It's a very difficult thing. So basically heuristic is a mental shortcut your brain uses to make quick decisions without thinking deeply, because the brain tries to react fast, conserve energy, avoid overthinking, make sense of situations quickly. So heuristic is one reason for you to validate that being judgmental is not wrong. So this is useful for survival, but it also causes mistakes. You meet a student who is quiet on the first day, your brain is, maybe she's shy. Maybe she's shy. This is heuristic, a fast guess, not a full understanding. But interestingly, guessing that is important, but not really explicitly mentioning to that student is even more important. Guessing that is important, but allowing yourself to learn more from that particular student and then coming to a conclusion is even more important. So, multiple judgments regularly, indirectly, multiple heuristics regularly can lead you to good judgments or the right judgments. So the brain has two systems for thinking from Daniel Kahneman Nobel winning research. It says that fast brain, which is all about the amygdala, and the slow brain, prefrontal cortex. So fast brain is like automatic, emotional, impulsive, quick, responsible for jumping to conclusion. This is the part that leads to being judgmental. Quick label, no evidence, strong belief. Sometimes what happens, we label the child and we start believing in it. We forgot that it was an assumption in the initial stages. Something like it happens generally in the family. So for example, you know something like you might not be able to cook a certain dish that well. Okay, probably your idlis are like stones or your chapati is like some hard paper or something like that, I don't know. And next time when you attempt to make, the whole family, before even tasting it or trying it, they'll be like, oh, today it's idli, it's going to be like a stone. Oh, today it's going to be chapati, a hard paper or a cardboard, something like that. That's basically because of heuristic, amygdala. Next is slow brain, which is prefrontal cortex. Logical, reflective, asks for evidence, slows down to understand behavior, make fair judgment. This is the part we must use as teachers to remain non-judgmental. So what could we do? So is it good to judge? What should we do? Judging is not inherently bad. In fact, judging is biologically wired into the human brain for survival. So judging is natural, automatic, and unavoidable. So far clear. Judgments become fixed labels. That's when it becomes harmful. She's irresponsible. That teacher is useless. He's lazy. Judging becomes moral superiority. Something like, I am right all the time. Judgments replace empathy. No scope of empathy at all. That's why it's not good to judge. What shall we do? So, convert judgment into understanding. How do we do that? One of the strategies is replace judgments with observations, which is basically CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Judgment is the student doesn't care about studies. Observation is the student did not submit homework for the last 3 days. That is the reality. Coming to a conclusion is the student does not care about. No, let's just observe. Observations activate prefrontal cortex, basically thinking brain. Judgments active emotional brain, which is amygdala. Strategy number one, replace judgments with observations and don't come to conclusions. Next is train the brain for cognitive flexibility. Now, what do you mean by cognitive flexibility? This is by the neuroscience of learning. I have a paper from Stanford, but every neuroscience talks about the same thing. Use these reframing questions. You remember we were talking about cognitive reframing back in one of the sessions called as the praise, the art of praising, the psychology behind praise, something like that. So, what else could be true? More like a detective. Why did this child behave like this? What might I be missing? What am I missing? What am I missing? Something like that. What context don't I know yet? These are the questions that will lead you to better judgments. If I assume the best, how does the story change? Even if I consider these points, still this fellow is wrong. Something like that. This activates it's basically dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Let's not get into the biological aspect of it. We'll learn about this during the cognitive bias session right after this. Reducing implicit bias. Train the brain for cognitive flexibility. Next is use empathic curiosity. Now, this is War of Kindness. Karke, there's a book by Dr. Jamil, which is again in Stanford. Before judging student or colleague, ask what pain, fear, or challenge might be behind this behavior. What need is unmet here? Something is missing. You want something, but you're not receiving. Judgment shuts down mirror neurons. Curiosity reacts, activates them. Talk to them in that way. So that's why most of the clinical psychologists, when you get into them, they'll start asking you questions. Sometimes that is irritating, but until they break the ice, when they ask the right question, the right answer comes out, and then they're like flawless, fluid like responses comes right after that. Slow down the automatic brain. It's like Daniel Kahneman we're talking about, right? System 1, system 2, amygdala and prefrontal cortex. Judgment is fast brain, which is all about the amygdala limbic system. Understanding is a slow brain, prefrontal cortex. A 2-second pause changes neurological pathways. We were talking about synapses in one of the sessions. It's because pause, breathe, reassess. This reduces amygdala reactivity up to 40%. Now, interestingly, all these attributes of strategies will increase your listening character, and it's very important. Practice micro compassion. Micro compassion, you don't have to be too much attached to the work that you do. It's like, let me respond and not react. Let me see the whole child, not just the behavior. This increases oxytocin, reduces harsh judgment. And the day when you get confidence in judging someone based on all of these factors is exactly the day you start becoming more confident about yourself. You'll be a little more calm. You'll be able to handle stress better because oxytocin gets released. You're happy about the efforts that you put behind knowing a particular person. It could be your husband or your son or your daughter. It could be anyone for that matter, or the new daughter-in-law or the son-in-law. It's very important. Practice micro compassion. Nice word, right? Micro compassion. Should we stop judging for that matter? No. The goal is not to avoid judging, but to upgrade your judgment from reaction to reflection, labeling to understanding, blame to empathy, criticism to curiosity. That's not about a step that you take. It's more on the mindset. It's the maturity shift. There are a lot of technical jargons today that we were supposed to speak. Actually, we didn't really touch upon it to keep the topic very simple. But the people who are actually interested in understanding judgments and judgmentals, I would request you to go through it in detail. Anywhere we were talking about something called as cognitive bias in the forthcoming sessions. But end of the day, we need to understand that this particular topic is on psychology, which is directly related to mental behavior. So mindset shift is what we are encouraging through this particular topic. Judge the scenario, judge the situation. Don't label the person. So behavior is not always the identity of a person. Mistake does not refer the character of a person. One incident cannot be the complete personality, but being judgmental can make that personality for a child. One or two times the child would have tried something, they failed, and if you label them, the next time the child doesn't have the motivation to take the same efforts to do something right. They'll be like, I'll still continue. The attitude changes, leading to character change. And who's the culprit over here? The person who asked the wrong question and became judgmental. In the end, a human character, especially after the age of 8, it is all about seeking attention, seeking validation, seeking acceptance, recognition. That's why appreciation is very important. It's important to make sure that a person, when they're putting up a point, maybe at the age of 30 or maybe at the age of 13, the dignity is the due that we need to be giving them. So it's like, let's have the same respect to a professor who is giving us an idea, and the same respect to even a 10 or 12-year-old child. That's where not being judgmental comes into play. So the single philosophy can reduce 90% of unnecessary conflict in schools. Teachers having conflict with the fellow colleagues, teachers having conflict with the principals, principals having the conflict with the management, teachers having the conflict with the students, students having the conflicts among students. It's important for us to talk about the difference between judgments and judgmental. So that brings me to the end of the session today, teachers, to give you a brief understanding on what exactly judgment and being judgmental is. I would like to share the presentation link right on the chat right now, and would request you to please open it up, go to further extent and details, and understand it in depth. Considering the format of Super Sunday workshops, we can't really get into a detailed session on any topics. And our team always makes sure that every Sunday we come up with a topic that's completely not related to the previous one and touch the knowledge, skills, and attitude aspect of every teacher. So the topic looks something like this. Session number 139, judgment and judgmental. And the presentation looks like this. So thank you so much, teachers. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak every Sunday on a topic. It gives me immense responsibility to make sure that all the information provided on the presentation are backed up with right data and information. All these links and references are there in the presentation as well, along with the names of papers. Some links I could not keep, but you can research about it. And uh, a small information on a Sunday can lead you to a better conversation in the following week. It could be with the students, parents, teachers, that is colleagues, and even the leaders for that matter. And if the conversation improves, confidence improves. And if confidence improves, recognition happens. And if recognition happens, we grow in our career. So that's what we're aiming at, right? So that the monthly salary also increases. Thank you so much. Great interacting with one and all teachers. Lovely set of audience for the last 139 sessions. I would like to request all the teachers out there to please talk about it to your colleagues and various other schools so that everybody participates. End of the day, our mission is to make sure that 1 lakh people, 1 lakh teachers eventually come live for a Super Sunday workshop, and will strive and aspire to make sure that the topics are relevant and backed up with information, data, and scientific backing. So thank you so much for being here. I would like to meet you again in the next Super Sunday workshop with another interesting topic. Actually, it's decided, it's called as cognitive bias. Until then, bye and Jai Hind. Thank you very much. If the schools are working on their computer science curriculum right now, if the decisions are yet to happen, I would request you to please contact us. We'll be able to provide you with our set of curriculum. I'm trying to say, do the marketing over here about my computer science books. But yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Nisha ma'am, Ardra ma'am. Wow, what a name. Rama ma'am, thank you so much. Raman Kumar sir, Preeti ma'am, Sandeep sir, thank you. Thank you very much. Stuti ma'am, good to see you. Probably after a long time. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Samina ma'am. The topic might not seem to be a scientific topic, but everything is scientifically backed. I would request you to please go through, judgmental. You're right, Ashwini ma'am. It's definitely high. Thank you. Thank you. And Mary ma'am, good to see you over here. Oh, me too. Yes, definitely. Be very shortly coming to your school, ma'am. Kajal ma'am, thank you. Harita ma'am, thank you. Shuchi Smita ma'am, good to have you. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Girija ma'am. Means a lot. Super Sunday workshops, right? Yeah. Sure. Adeline Shah Fernando, absolutely. You can get my number from the reflection form that's coming on the chat. It's right on the top. We'll talk. Mamta ma'am, thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Pushpalata ma'am. You've been a pioneer on that. No doubt in that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, yes, Sulaja ma'am. It was prepared yesterday, so they would have missed the date. You got 8 out of 10. The questions are a little tough today. It is more like a revision. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Joydev Bhattacharya sir. Thank you. Thank you, Ganga ma'am. That's great. I'm going to respond to you very soon. Thank you. Thank you, Rashmi ma'am. The computer science teachers, if you're there is an event called a CS Gems online on 20th and 21st from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. I would like to request you to participate. It's in collaboration with Bits Pilani on the topic of AI, data science, cybersecurity, on how to teach computer science, C4 model, basically pedagogy, curriculum, assessment, and technology. Kindly participate and get your certificates. The certificates will be valid for your CPDRs. Yeah, and even the ICSE will have a separate session on the upgradations in curriculum by ICSE, especially from the information from IIT Delhi. So 20th and 21st is the date. Kindly pass on this to your computer science teachers so that they can participate. Thank you, Taruna ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Anne ma'am. Sumati ma'am, good to see you. Teacher sees a child always playing and says, you will never learn anything. Encouragement, being judgmental, setting obviously being judgmental. So is the answer wrong over there, Seema ma'am, by any chance? Thank you, Ambika ma'am. Thank you, Avnisha. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, Divya ma'am, the link is right below as a response. Yes, Triveni ma'am, there's a topic on that. We already did ADHD, but we're going to continue on that. Thank you, Seema ma'am. Let me check. Let me immediately check. There are certain errors in the question paper, I guess. I can see that. Don't worry, you can mark the correct answer. Once I change the answer at the back end, it'll be automatically corrected. Varsha ma'am, you can go to this website called as SuperTeacher.in, and there'll be this thing called as events. And under the events column, you can, see Super Sunday workshop. It's done, Seema ma'am. Great. Thank you. Soros will be mailed to you. Thank you. Thank you, Archana ma'am. I'll meet you all in the next Super Sunday workshop on the topic of cognitive bias, and that's going to be kind of a conclusion for being judgment and judgmental topic. It'll be quite interesting. Cognitive bias. Why do we have an opinion on a particular person? Can we really avoid it? Why should we even have it for that matter? So let's understand that in the next Super Sunday workshop. Until then, bye everyone. Thank you so much, teachers. Have a Super Sunday with your family. Everybody can attend, Nisha ma'am. Yeah. Thank you.